planetary princesses, and you have landed on our planet. A spell has been cast, and now you are one of us.
Hello and welcome to Planetary Princesses, your royal invitation to the cosmos. I'm Ashlee.
And I'm Kate.
And today we are so excited to be flying into the astrology of Wicked, the iconic stage musical and the now movie that has the rest of us spellbound.
Yes, we have already explored the charts of our cosmic queens, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, in our Astrology of an Icon deep dives. But now we're turning our telescopes towards Oz itself. What happens when you look at this story of magic, morality, sisterhood through an astrological lens?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about power and perception and destiny, and of course, a bit of defying gravity.
So grab your broomsticks and your glitter, because today in this episode, we're diving into those cosmic currents behind Wicked, exploring the archetypes of good and evil, transformation and friendship, and fate through the planets and signs that bring this story to life. And I have to say, Ashlee, you look incredible as Elphaba here. Loving your look.
You look incredible as Glinda. Your hair, you just completely nailed it.
Well, thank you. I will admit I was Glinda for Halloween, so I did happen to have this on hand for the episode today, and I'm so glad we're physically embodying these beautiful, amazing characters, because Wicked is such a fun musical, and I think part of the fun is, getting dressed up as your favorite character. And for me, hey, it's pretty much a tie between Elphaba and Glinda, but any excuse to wear a crown, right?
Or a witch's hat. I feel like I really identified with Elphaba during the movie, like the whole time. There are so many themes with Pluto and Lilith that Elphaba definitely embodies, which we're totally going to get into. But for me, I have Pluto and I have Lilith on my ascendant. So, in layman's terms, I'm kind of the face for Pluto and for Lilith, whether I want to be or not, even if I'm like going through this total angel era. I can walk into a room and make people think that like I might do something wrong, do something bad, or people might want to outcast me. Like obviously not to the extent of Elphaba, but a lot of the things she went through, like I felt it so much in my heart. So I'm just so happy to get into my green hands and to just dive through the astrology of this movie with you.
I'm so excited too. And that is a powerful signature in your chart. And so let's start off by talking about the astrology theme of good and evil. So Wicked flips the script. It's like, who decides really what's good or wicked? And you just brought up Pluto and Lilith. And can you just share like what Lilith is? What is that archetype for people that might not know?
Yeah, so Lilith has a lot of stories about her in mythology, and none of them portray her in a really good light. But I would say the most common one is how she was in the Garden of Eden before Adam, and they were both created together, not as equal, but Lilith was made to be submissive to Adam, and she was like, "No, I'm not doing this. Like screw this. I'm not submitting to you. I'm my own person, and we're equal." So she bounced and she left the Garden of Eden. So now she's known to be like this evil person who looks like a monster in a lot of mythology. And everyone's carrying this energy in their birth chart, right? So everyone has this point in their aura or their energetic signature where they are a bit rebellious, or where they feel like they would walk away from something that really, really pissed them off, or where they would say, no, I'm not doing that. and it just comes natural. So Elphaba kind of embodies it, and she very likely has it right on her ascendant.
Totally. That is something you, I'm sure, share in the astrological universe. And that's so interesting because, yeah, Elphaba really is like that outcast figure, but we get to see the whole story how this is a person who deeply cares about justice and wants everyone to have an equal opportunity. And the narrative around her is pushed that she's this bad, wicked witch. But of course, we all get to see the story showing the real her. And so that's really similar to Lilith, where it's like she's a misunderstood character by people in the parables and stories that she's represented in. But actually, it's like, it's not a bad thing to rebel against things that are truly wicked and truly evil, which is what Lilith does and what Elphaba does.
Definitely. And with Elphaba, it really breaks my heart because it started with her as a newborn. So when she was born, she had this green skin, and everyone just equated her as like evil or what's going on with this person. So people will look at her all throughout her life, and they might unconsciously place like their fears or their guilt or any kind of anxiety, and she would be the person to blame it on. And as a baby, like she can't even defend herself. It's so rough. And she gives off themes as like, I would say people project evilness on people who have Pluto energy rising in their chart, who have Lilith energy rising in their chart, and even Uranus, right, on their ascendant or on one of their angles in their chart, which shows like the shock value.
Definitely. And yeah, it really like exemplifies like the exiled parts of the feminine archetype and the shadow self when, like you're saying, when someone has that Pluto or Lilith or even Uranus energy on a prominent angle of their chart. And also like Neptune too, because Neptune is the planet of illusions. And so that's kind of like exemplifying how you can project evil onto someone because of the illusions around like morality that people might have, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that Glinda portrays good or evil throughout the movie?
So Glinda is so interesting. I think she's a great example of that Neptune illusion energy because something I like to think of with Neptune is the concept of having rose colored glasses on. So, like when someone has Neptune, say on their ascendant or on like their Venus or any planet, it's like they have rose colored glasses on that part of their chart in a way. And so for Glinda, it's like she embodies this Neptunian like look at the world, like everything is good, like I'm good, I'm popular. I create this world that's kind of like built on illusions of social structure and what people know of you, not necessarily the true you. And so I think Glinda, she such an interesting character because to everyone in Oz, she really does represent good. Like what could possibly be wrong with her? She's so sweet and nice and look, she's helping someone else be popular, but actually she is doing this for reasons that are more evil, which are like just wanting to be in a structure of society that gets her far and gets her social status. And she's not really getting to know her partner, who she has a crush on, Fiyero. She doesn't really even get to know him very well. She just kind of is like, oh, this is the guy I'm supposed to love. And this is great. And so I do think that she gives the illusion of good, but actually she is more wicked, honestly.
That's interesting. And I like how you said she embodies Neptune because right in the first scene of the movie, she first shows up traveling through a bubble, which shows
Mhm.
that she has a bubble around her where she's projecting an image where people might not see her clearly. And likewise, she might not see everyone else clearly. But I think when it comes to Glinda, I think the planet that she really, really embodies the most is Venus. Because Venus does show the feminine energy of the beauty and the love for everything, but there is a shadow side of Venus as well. And I could tell you about that. Sometimes when I see Venus like on the ascendant or in the first house, it's going to make, as we call it, the native, the person who owns the chart, it's going to make them very beautiful and seductive, but it can also do a few other things, which I've noticed. Glinda, or not Glinda, Venus, should I say, has the tendency to, I guess, make other people their pawns in a way, because when you have Venus so close to one of your angles, you're elevating yourself naturally because you're naturally seeing the world as so sweet and so great. And you have that with you and you have the ability to seduce. So if you were born as like this beautiful, beautiful person who fascinates people just by looking at you, you start learning, I can get what I want. Um,
Mm.
and you learn how to work with that. And then what happens when you don't get what you want? All of a sudden, it's like things might come crashing down. And over time, you might learn to like use that to manipulate people. And sometimes, like, the player, I guess you could say archetype, like the really good looking person, male, female, doesn't matter, might date around a lot or might indulge a lot in a lot of people because they have Venus so close to them. And this doesn't have anything to do with wicked per se, but I noticed when Venus is prominent in someone's chart that they tend to overindulge in food or treats or even like alcohol and stuff like that or whatever brings them pleasure, because when you have Venus so prominent in your chart, you like really, really want to indulge in things. So let's take that with Glinda and maybe discuss like how she uses her beauty and her charm to get what she wants.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you said that so well. And Wicked, she walks into Shiz University. She knows that she's beautiful. She's been studying her whole life to be, I don't know, would you call it a sorceress? I forget like what they call I guess a witch, but like she wants to be Madame Morrible in the movie. Like she wants to be someone who has magical powers and can influence others. And she has been studying her whole life to be this person, but when she actually gets there, she realizes that she doesn't actually have powers like Elphaba does. And so her realizing that she can't get what she wants, I think, is what compels her to betray Elphaba and the cause of helping the animals and making sure that they're not being taken advantage of. Glinda knows that this is important to Elphaba and that this is an important thing, but she chooses not to do it because if she chooses to go on Elphaba's side, she won't be able to get the power and status that she wants. And so it really is that shadow side of Venus, exactly like you described. She has to resort to kind of manipulating the situation and rejecting the helping someone that is kind of like has what she wants, but she can't get it. So she rejects that in order to get a different kind of power that is more guaranteed. And that's in the social structure of Oz. And, now she's in the wizard and Madame Morrible's good graces. So she will kind of be allowed to have power, even though she doesn't have the magical powers that she wanted to have originally.
So you're basically saying, you brought up a good point, that Glinda or someone with a strong, prominent Venus placement could actually use this energy and redirect it as needed. And sometimes when they redirect it, it might not be in the best interest of people around them. So that brings the point, are they being good? Are they being evil? Or are they working with their energy? So yeah, with Glinda, when she first came to Shiz University and was trying to seduce, I mean, not in like a sexual way, but just seduce Madame Marble, and she's like, oh yeah, okay, get away from me. But then when she saw that Madame Marble suddenly was like gonna take the green person, it's suddenly like, oh, well, maybe I can see what's going on with this green person and use my power to get into her head. And even like you said, at the end of the movie, when she chose to conform to society, Venus isn't always about doing the right thing. It's about um, making things comfortable instead of doing things that might be good. So Glinda is now going to live her life being loved by the crowd, but she's going to do something that was kind of against maybe her own morals. Like I think she really was conflicted and she really wanted to go with Elphaba at the end, but the Venus in her was like, no, I must do what's right. I must continue having everybody love me. And you know what? That ties in a lot with Libra energy because Venus rules Libra placements. And sometimes Libra placements tend to like not do what's really right for them or for society because they just want to indulge. Like when it comes to dating, they might say what they need to say to get the date rolling when they don't really feel that way. And then their poor date that, I don't know, that Virgo man's walking around like, oh, she loves me. But then the Libra's like, I have a couple Geminis in my pocket. And I'm not trashing Libras. Like, I'm a Libra stellium. I'm just saying that Venus does what feels right to them at the time. And when you have this so close to one of your angles or to one of your placements, sometimes it's just how you are. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're evil. It just means you're following your own energetic signature that God or the Lord has given you.
Well, that's so great how you said that. And that's so ties into our next section, which we have here, which is the Libra vibe of like friendship between women. Like that's a huge part of this movie. The bond between Elphaba and Glinda, that rivalry, the tension, and the deep loyalty. And that really reminds me of Libra vibes because Libra is one on one partnerships and it's trying to balance the scales because the glyph for Libra is balancing the scales. And it also relates to Venus, like we just talked about, because, friendship between women is very Venusian. It's like, women, we love to do activities together. A lot of us like to, maybe shop or talk about beauty and share beauty secrets. And that is really mirroring like what Glinda does in Popular with Elphaba. Like she basically is serving her on a platter like, this is Venus. Like this is how you are beautiful. This is how you become popular. You know how to fix your hair and how to talk to boys and all these things. And it's also like embodying the Libra energy of like, and I want to partner with you. I want to make you my equal in this. You can be popular too. And so I think that's really interesting. And also, I think that their friendship really exemplifies what we talk about with Juno when we do chart readings. So, like, Ashlee, when you're looking at someone's chart and you see their Juno, like, that's the marriage asteroid, basically, but it can also apply to friendships or just partnerships. And I think that, like, Elphaba and Glinda, like, really show that Juno energy of, like, in their charts, they would definitely have a conjunction or something with Juno, don't you think?
Yes, I think that they definitely have like their Juno's trining, or maybe like one Juno is conjunct like their sun or something like that, because they do start off in like both a rivalry, but also a fascination because they do represent two completely different energies that are likely in oppositions to each other, because that's how an opposition would work. Two sides come together and other person is so opposite of you that it's kind of like attractive at the same time. They're everything that you want. And coming together could bring some tension that could lead to growth. But it felt like the moment that Glinda and Elphaba laid eyes onto each other, an opposition was definitely in place. And while Glinda brought about the Venus, the beauty, the Libra, the Taurus, Elphaba brought something completely different, like emotional depth. And I'm almost still thinking that she brought like a whole Saturn kind of thing. Because Elphaba arrived with the Saturn seriousness to her. Like there was like a boundary, a rule against her, something very like calm. And it's about restraining yourself. So when they're together, it's like a clash. Like between the other. Like the whole side of Glinda will want fun and charm and making things pretty, and Elphaba is going to sit there and want to bring depth, to really look into things, and also at the same time, Saturn, like how do I control my own energy? Because they also feel a lot like to me, like the whole. I'm not saying that Glinda is a narcissist at all. I'm going to extremes here to kind of illustrate what I'm saying. But do you ever hear in spiritual talks or in podcasts where they talk about the narcissist versus the empath? And I think in this movie that Elphaba really represents the empath, because when she feels like any extreme emotion, it manifests in this physical world. Like even at the scene of orientation, when something happened and she was able to move things physically because something happened, everyone just looked at her and they're like, what is this? And in reality, it's all about controlling herself. That was a long explanation for saying they give off Venus and Saturn to me.
Oh, they absolutely do. Yes, I completely agree. And yeah, and also Saturn rules time. And it's interesting that Elphaba, it took her time in her life to get to this school to learn this mastery of her powers. Like it didn't just happen overnight. Like when she went through a lot of struggle her whole life, having these powers, not knowing how to control them, what they even were. And then when she finally got to this level of higher education, it's like that was the Saturn theme too, because Saturn rules like lessons that you learn. And so she really embodies that archetype of once you get to the higher institution to learn, after you've gone through this whole Saturn cycle, which is about 28 to 30 years. We don't actually know their ages in the show, but like generally speaking, it takes time for her to get to this level where she's able to learn to harness her powers. And I think that's really interesting what you brought up with the empath as well, because it's like when you're in your chart, like let's say your Saturn return, you're living your life and you're an emotional being. We all are. And when you go through your Saturn return, it can be like kind of like a shock and like almost like a wake up call. Like, hey, there's some things you need to learn here in order to get to the next level. And so I really think that watching Elphaba is so relatable to so many people because we've all gone through that process of like living our life, having our own emotional internal world. And then when you get to your Saturn return, it's like, hey, like if you want to control this, if you want to actually get somewhere, here's the lessons you have to learn. And so her character really is like kind of embodying that whole Saturn return vibe. And the thing with Venus, with Glinda, it's like your Venus return happens like, what is it, once every like 2.5 years? It's like that's a pretty short cycle. So there's like not as much growth and evolution that happens with Venus, whereas like Saturn, it's 28, 30 years. It's like very it's a big deal, kind of kind of a cycle that you go through, as opposed to Venus is kind of just like you live your Venus vibe. It doesn't evolve as much through the cycles of your life.
You know what I did during my Venus return, which happened like 2 days ago?
Tell me.
I ate sugar. I went into my kids' Halloween candy bag and I ate like bags of Skittles because Venus is all about indulgence. And sometimes I could just literally eat the whole kitchen cabinet, including the doors itself to the cabinet. So on the Venus return, like all I wanted to do was eat. It's interesting you talked about the Saturn return because I was thinking now, even though Elphaba might be a little too young to go through her Saturn return, she was very likely in the movie, like when they first got to Shiz, when you're about 17 years old, you go through your first Saturn opposition, where Saturn is halfway across the zodiac from where you were born. So when you're at your Saturn return, your Saturn placement is going to match up with wherever your natal placement is. And that's where lessons are completed and cycles started. But when Saturn is opposing your Saturn, which yikes, I'm going to be going through that in just a few months because that happens again when you're middle age. Anyway, when it's opposing you, it's like a midpoint of the lesson. So it could almost be like something you're really struggling with will come to this big boom to make sure you're on track for when you do go through your Saturn return. So here's what I was thinking. Elphaba didn't get accepted into Shiz University. She went because she naturally is a pure, kind soul, and she went to bring her sister to the university to get settled because her sister was handicapped. And Elphaba is absolutely, to her heart, a loving and caring person. She definitely has some sixth house energy within her. She wanted to go to this university, didn't even bother because her dad didn't like her and all this, whatever. So she was always being exiled. But when she got there to be such a kind person, suddenly her abilities randomly got noticed when she wasn't even trying. And it's because she had the kind heart to actually show up at the university to sit with her sister all during orientation. And that's what got her noticed by Madame Morrible, the horrible. I did not like her. We'll get into that later. But when she noticed her, all of a sudden, not only did Elphaba get a spot, she got a place in the most beautiful dorm room in the university and paired with her future BFF, I guess you could say. So it's showing that when you put a little bit of work into whatever's limiting you, like, yeah, she's not the kind of person who wants to be seen, but she decided, hey, I'm going to go to this college anyway and just do what I have to do. It rewards you. So there's a great chance that she was going through maybe the ending of her Saturn midpoint. Or if she was a little older, of her 20s, it could have been like Saturn going through her third house, helping out your sister, because third house rules siblings, and good things will happen to you. So when Saturn's transiting, like, good things can really happen if you're willing to put in some work into it.
Totally. I think Saturn is one of those planets, it gets a bad rep, and it's like people can think of it as scary, but it actually is always helping you evolve towards a greater expression of your true energies and talents, which is exactly what happened with Elphaba. So that is so interesting. And since we're talking about Saturn and stuff, let's talk about like the themes in Wicked of power and corruption. Okay, we kind of have touched on this a little bit with mentioning Madame Morrible and the wizard. So, like in Wicked, the wizard rules through smoke and mirrors and controlling narratives. And so, the astrology connection with that really is like Jupiter and Saturn archetype, which is authority, law, and power structures, versus Neptune, which is illusion and deception. And the wizard, especially, really represents that Jupiter Saturn energy in opposition to Neptune. So we just talked a lot about Saturn and what that planet means. And the reason why we are associating it with Jupiter as well, because Jupiter kind of blows things up. Like Jupiter expands everything that it touches. And so when Jupiter and Saturn come together, it expands structure, it expands restriction in a way. And that's very the wizard coded because him showing up in Oz, he was this larger than life presence that just kind of flew in on a hot air balloon and came to Oz, and everyone was like in awe of this, and it was very like Jupiterian how he came in, but then he aligned himself with the Saturnian structure of Oz, the power structure, and that in opposition to Neptune, which is illusion and deception, is how he was able to really rule powerfully and keep his power. Actually, his, that mask, that huge scary mask that he hides behind, that's like a perfect way of explaining this energy, the Jupiter Saturn, a structure that's huge and intimidating and scary, but it's also an illusion, actually hiding the truth behind there's actually just a man behind the curtain. So I just think that's really interesting how those outer planets really exemplify the wizard's whole vibe.
Yeah. So the outer planets, here's what I was thinking. This movie took place in like 1900s. I looked it up and it said that Neptune was going through Cancer, then it was going through Leo around that time, and Gemini. So Gemini. So there was delusions in the way how information was happening. There was delusions on what the home and what the roots are that are ruling over. And then there was deception in stardom at that time. So the wizard, like, we found out not once, but twice that this dude was a major, major fraud. When actually the first part of the deception in this whole thing was when I got the whole invitation to even go see the wizard, because she believed that she was going to save the animals and to find a way to get animals out of their cages. So she went there with purely good intentions. When they got there, there's this whole song and dance surrounding the wizard because everyone worshipped him. So when we get there, we see like that big, scary face that looked like a Disneyland haunted house. It was so scary. And talking through fire, which brings out Neptune and Leo, delusions through fire. And all of a sudden he comes out and we find out he's the man behind the curtain. So that's deception number one, power and corruption number one. And then we find out when Elphaba was given the spell book. What is it called? The Grimoire? I guess it's the, yeah. So Elphaba was reading from there. And that's when she realized that the wizard had absolutely no power at all. And in fact, I think he said himself in the movie, he's like, if my head wasn't screwed on, I would just leave it in Munchkinland. Like, to show that not only he doesn't have power, but he's also kind of a chump. Like, what is going on here? So he completely was corrupted in this whole thing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love how you brought up the astrology of the time that the original story was written, because yeah, the author L. Frank Baum like completely infused the energy of the time into what he was writing. And so I love that you brought that up. That's so interesting. And then also another theme I wanted to talk about with you is like kind of the shadow and transformation theme of Wicked. You know, the theme of Wicked is one of the themes is Elphaba falling into being the Wicked Witch. It's actually her evolution into truth. And so that kind of relates to the deception, like vibes that we were talking about. But for her, it's more kind of embodying that Pluto and Scorpio energy. It's her being the Wicked Witch is really obviously an illusion. That's something that they tried to make everyone believe. But what's really happening is that she is like channeling this Pluto and Scorpio energy of like death, transformation, and rebirth, like on a personal level for her, because it's like the Elphaba that she is like almost has to die so that she can be reborn as this new version where she is just like ruthless in trying to save Oz and like save the animals, even though that's not what the illusion and what the power structures want you to believe. So could you talk a little bit more about like that Pluto and Scorpio vibe with Elphaba?
Yeah, so for this movie, I'm going to assume that Elphaba is a Scorpio rising, or at the very least, maybe someone who has Pluto directly on her ascendant. So wherever the Elphaba goes, she's going to give people maybe like an uneasy feeling. And I'm not saying that Scorpios do this, or even people who have Pluto on their ascendant do it. But in Elphaba's case is more extreme. Wherever she goes, she is going to give people that uneasy feeling, and it's because she has powers deep down that some people can sense and that they don't understand. The thing is that Madame Morrible and the Wizard of Oz did say, wait, this one person is not a fraud. She really does have powers. How can we manipulate this into our benefit? And how can we use her? So they lied to her. That's more another theme of corruption, I guess, which we previously talked about, where she was brought there to read a spell that gave these animal wings. And when Elphaba did it, she realized that these animals didn't want wings. It hurt them. And she basically did something to control the animals, which was the exact opposite of what she wanted. So she decided to exile, aka Lilith was there. She's like, okay, I am out of here. And then when she was out of there, the whole shadow and transformation, let's cast the Pluto lady as the bad person. Hey, monkeys, Elphaba did this. And they're not lying. Elphaba did do it. But they gave her false pretenses, which is definitely a downfall of the Scorpio or the Pluto on the ascendant. that happen. Someone could be so powerful, they're casted as the Wicked Witch, even though they're one of the most kindest people, and we can get into that.
Yes, yes. And you know what's really interesting too is that Saturn again relates to Elphaba in that situation because she's carrying the burden of standing alone against these structures that are in place. And that really is that like Plutonian energy of being like completely like cast aside and like ice cold. Like Pluto is the planet that's furthest away in our solar system, and it's like it's really small, and I don't know if you all remember, but they made it not a planet in the past. You know, they literally devalued Pluto and said you're not even a planet, like, which is exactly what they do to Elphaba. They're like, you're not even a human worth any sort of care or respect. You're a wicked witch, and we're going to spread propaganda about you, telling everybody that you're horrible. And so that really is like her embodying her character embodying that Pluto, Scorpio, Saturn journey of like having to be outcast, but they're actually a good person, like, and they're trying to evolve into the highest expression of their like soul growth. That's what astrology is all about. Like, your birth chart is not a death sentence. It's actually you're going through all these transits throughout your whole life, and it's a soul contract that you signed, you know, when you came here. And it's so Elphaba, when she signed this soul contract, like, she was always destined to go through these kind of Plutonian, Scorpio, even Saturnian themes to evolve and grow and become this better expression, even though it's, you know, really difficult and she didn't deserve this treatment at all. But that's kind of like how you can relate it to astrology is she went through these dark cycles, but we'll watch in part 2 to see like how she harnesses this and really like moves forward and hopefully prevails in some way at the end of the story.
Yeah, and since we're bringing up the astrology of it, I feel like there's a lot of sixth house to 12th house themes that are coming up here with the animals. So I feel like at the beginning of the movie, the animals started out maybe in a third house theme, where third house is people, or I guess in this case, animals that you talk to on a daily basis on a routine. And here we see them integrated in the school. There was a professor, which is really a ninth house theme, ninth, third, kind of different sides of the same coin, but they had a theme where they were much more important and almost vital in the people's lives. But what the corrupted powers of Oz and whoever was running the shadow government, I guess you could say, they want to make the animals more into a sixth house theme, which in a way that really is how it is today, where the sixth house is all about taking care of someone or putting your own needs aside to take care of someone else's. And we consider our relationships with our house animals to be sixth house themes because we walk them every day. We feed them every day. We give them their water. We pick up their poop. Like we're put into like a theme where we're almost submissive to the animals in a way. And that's where Oz wanted these animals to go. And in order for them to be exiled like that, it almost came up as a 12th house theme, because 12th house is where our identities are completely taken away from us. So there is that. But also, when we look at big animals today, big animals are considered to be in the 12th house, according to ancient astrology. So the small animals that live with you, like chickens, even chickens, goats, pigs, dogs, cats, they're part of your everyday life. So they're in the sixth house. We take care of them. But when we have big animals, like if some of our friends who listen have horses, or I don't know, like when you have big cats, I see some people who have like the tigers, like so wild, but that puts your relationship with them in the 12th house because they're not super, super close to you. Like they're not in your house. You have to go somewhere to see them and take away your own everyday life to get to them. And also, like, they can kill you. It's very, very risky to be around them. Like, if that horse decides dealing with this today, they can like really seriously hurt you. So you're putting yourself in a 12th house theme just by dealing with them. So there was a lot of 6th house to 12th house themes that were going on here. But since we're talking about transformation, I think that Glinda changing her name from Galinda to Glinda really, really honors that. And it shows how she did transformation herself into almost like a 6th house theme, because she changed her name to Glinda to honor the professor. I forgot his name, that goat who was
Dr. Dillamond.
Yes, Dr. Dillamond. So Dr. Dillamond called her Glinda at first, and Glinda was like, ew, screw you, don't call me that. But then when she realized how, at the end of the movie, how like animals were so important, she actually changed her name in honor of it, which got a little 6th house, 12th house access in there too. That was a mouthful,
Wow.
sorry.
Wow, that like blew my mind though, hearing you talk about
Oh,
that. And it's so true. Like you were saying how it transitioned from the third, ninth house opposition of like communication and even higher learning, and it transitioned into that 6th, 12th, and it's transforming into the structure we have today. That is so interesting. That's such a cool way to think of the transformation. And like you were saying with the 12th house, it like rules death and like endings too. And there is like an inherent risk when you go up against like bigger animals like that. And I think that's kind of why we feel like the flying monkeys are kind of like intimidating and scary in the movie, because it really shows how they've transitioned into that 12th, 6th axis where it's like, oh, they're like, they could seriously hurt you, like, because they're powerful and they're flying around and I think that's really interesting, how you explained that. That's so cool.
yeah, and when they have wings, they turn into 12th house creatures. Like the 6th house monkeys are
Hmm.
just like sweet, cute, and our partner. But then when they have wings and they're flying, that spell made them 12th housers without even their consent.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. That's so cool. Astrology is so layered. And so it's not just the planets and the signs, it's also the houses and those themes as well. And something else we thought would be cool to talk about was also like community versus exile theme, because that's really like 11th house versus 12th house. So since we're talking about houses, like Glinda in the movie is adored by society and Elphaba is cast out. And we just talked about how the 12th house, those kinds of themes are like, it's like death and it's being kind of put in a box and being isolated. And that really relates to Elphaba as well. And and like we talked about with the 6-12 theme in Wicked, they're trying to put her in the 12th house. They're like, you're a big, scary creature. You're not even a person. They like dehumanize her with their propaganda. And then the way that Glinda fits into it is that she really is embodying those 11th house themes. And the 11th house represents community and networks and like friendship too. And it's also aligned with Aquarius energy of being kind of more networking. Aquarius rules networking and information that you receive through like radio waves. And I think that at the end of the movie, part one, when they use Madame Morrible uses like the microphone to make the announcement to everyone in Oz about how Elphaba is this wicked witch, and then she's going to use Glinda to be that physical mouthpiece when she sends her out in the bubble to like see Munchkinland and talk to everyone. That is really 11th house themes, like community and networks versus Elphaba's 12th house theme of being isolated and in exile. And it's like the dichotomy between those two houses and their themes.
Yeah, and you have an 11th house moon, so you probably experience a lot of 11th house themes in your life. And that's why you're always so good in our group chats. Like you're always the one checking in with people and lightening the mood and breaking the ice if ever needed. So you're great with
Oh,
that.
Oh, you're so sweet. Yes, I do really relate to 11th house themes. I mean, I am dressed as Glinda today. I do relate to Glinda's um kind of like social aspect because the 11th house is very like social and networking, and it's also kind of distant. The 11th house is like connection while being distant as well. And like you mentioned the group chats, like if you have a lot of 11th house placements or 11th house themes in your chart, you're probably really good in group chats because it allows you to be connected, but you're also kind of distanced from everything, so you don't have to get too deep in the weeds and too emotional if you're not feeling up to it. That's very me, and that's also very Glinda in the story.
You just gave me kind of like an epiphany in my head because sometimes, like when I'm picking up my daughter from school, right, there's a crowd of women, of moms or whoever picking up the children at the school. Everyone's standing there. And some people, like in the school pickup crowd, are going in the crowd, be like, hey, haven't seen you in a week. What's been going on? And I'm just like, oh my God, they have 11th house placements because I do not have. The thing is what you said gave me the epiphany is the reason why I can't do that is because I'm too attached and everything. Like I'll look around at the moms and be like, oh, she's wearing X, Y, and Z. I wonder what she's feeling. I wonder what she's going through. Her kid played basketball. I wonder what that's like for her. Like I'm thinking way too much about each person and I'm almost too attached in a way to my thoughts to be able to like let my guard down and just go up to them like, how's the family? How's, your mom? Like whatever. So yeah, that's really interesting how the 11th house, you do have a little bit of a disconnection because you have to get out of your own head to charm other people's. And hats off to you
Mhm.
for doing that. Whoa. I've always wanted to say hats off to you and actually have a hat on. So thank you for giving me that
And
opportunity.
oh, this is your moment. I love it. But what you have is a beautiful gift as well. What you're describing really embodies Elphaba's energy, like when she's in the classroom and they're all like making fun of Dr. Dillamond, and she's like, why, like, don't do that. Like she's more connected to the emotional quality of the room. And that's what you're describing for yourself. You're more like when you see a group like that, you're more in your mind like focused on what could be the emotional things going on under the surface, and I think that's a really beautiful quality to have. This particular example, it does show how when you have 11th house placements and you have that kind of disconnection, a little bit like the distance, it almost makes it easier to connect in those larger groups or the larger social situations. But you have so much Libra in your chart. That is such a beautiful Libra quality, is to be able to connect deeply one-on-one with people. And so I'm not going to take my crown off, but my crown off to you for, having that Libra quality. And I think that that is something that Elphaba really shows in the story as well.
You're right. And you also made me think of something else that happened in the story that's so community in exile. Let's talk about the Oz Dust ballroom scene. Because, okay, right before the scene, I almost said Ariana Grande. Glinda is in her dressing room with her two buddies, Bo and Yang, and I forgot the lady's name, her friend. But they were like doing their makeup, getting ready for the big ball. And Ariana's like, ugh, this hat my grandmother gave for me. She put up the Black Witch's hat. And they all made fun of her hat. Ha ha ha, what an ugly hat. The end. Then everyone leaves and Elphaba comes. And Elphaba's like, oh, what am I going to wear to the ball? And Glinda goes, oh, look at this hat. So the ball starts, and that's Glinda being a little Venusy, a little over Venusy in the shadow side. Like, oh, wear my hat. Look, I have all these beautiful things. Let me help you. The Ozdust ball happens, and Elphaba shows up, and she's feeling everyone's looking at her because Pluto is a spotlight in a way. Not a spotlight how like a Leo person would have a spotlight, but more of a spotlight on how someone's like, ooh, look at that literal witch. Like even in today's society, they're not going to think witch, but they're going to think, oh, look at that weirdo, or look at that person gives me the creeps. Like she walked in and there was Exile. Everyone turned around and they're like, Lord, that green person is wearing the most ugliest hat in the world. And Elphaba felt it. She felt awkward, and she made a moment of it where she's like, I'm just going to do this dance. And the dance was awkward. And Glinda was like, oh my God, I cannot watch this anymore. And that is when her shadow side of Venus completely turned into light. And she walked onto the dance floor with Elphaba, did the awkward dance with her, and it became a thing. And everyone did it. So sometimes when you have a little Venus, I guess, in the 11th house, you can turn something that's Exile or Pluto or even Chiron, the whole wound aspect from the whole thing, and make it into a healing moment where everyone came and they're like, hey, let's do this whole new funky dance inspired by the most popular girl in the school. And it was the witch that did it. I just thought that was a really, really powerful healing scene. And like you said, with the disconnection, when you have 11th house placements, you do have to like have a bit of a disconnect where Glinda's not like, oh, I'm going to look like such a weirdo dancing with her. She's like, nah, let's just get in here and do it for the community. Let's do it for the good. And that's something that 11th house people can do.
Oh, that's such a great example of that energy. And that scene, it really feels very Libra coded to me as well, because it's like they go from being individuals, Aries, to the polar side of that, which is Libra, and they partner up in that moment, and they really show that they're the yin and the yang, and they are bonded through that awkward experience, but they decide to partner up, and then that's what makes it so like magical for their vibe. And I love how you described her Venus going from the shadow side to the light, because that scene like really is the turning point for her character. So I love how you described that. And you also brought up Chiron, and with Chiron, which is the wounded healer, that is really connected to the themes of Wicked around love and sacrifice. So we got to talk about Elphaba's hidden romance with Fiyero, and like how that plays into the themes of Wicked, because the theme is sometimes like the cost of living authentically, right? So Venus is love, Chiron is the wounded healer, and that can be like the cost of love. And it also relates to the 8th house. And I have a lot of 8th house placements, which is like intimacy, sacrifice, and loss. So the astrology vibe with this hidden romance is sometimes love. There's some insecurities that you have, like Elphaba is insecure about how she's not that girl. Like she sings the song like, Glinda's that girl. Like, look at her with her beautiful hair and her social status. Like, of course she's going to get the guy. And like, I'm not that girl. But really, it's Elphaba is that girl. Like, she is so deep and authentic, and she is healing herself, Chiron, through having a love for Fiyero. She's realizing over the course of the story that like she is someone who deserves love, and even though she might feel like not as lovable herself, she's growing through those wounds and like evolving towards the higher expression of Chiron, which is like healing yourself and connecting that with Venus and about who you love.
Well, you know what they say, love can heal anything.
Yes, indeed.
So I love that you brought up the 8th house, because there was a moment in that movie which happened to me a few times in life, which I won't even get into, but this is the most 8th house thing ever. So do you ever like look at, there's this random person, let's just pretend like there's this guy in your class and he's just like a guy, never noticed him. You might say hi, like whatever. He kind of, maybe he even gives you the ick a little. But then you're sitting next to each other, like at a table, and like your knees tap or like your shoulders brush, and there's a touch there. And all of a sudden, things go from like that guy to like, why did I just like feel something? That was like kind of crazy. And that's exactly what the 8th house is. It's when there's feelings there that you've never noticed until a point happens, in that case, a touch. And that touch happened with Elphaba. Like, weren't they in the woods, she's like, no, I don't eat grass. And like, she was just like giving the whole speech that she says to everyone. And then they touched hands and they both felt something. And that's the eighth house, when a new feeling, it's been there, you didn't know about it, but then you touch and that feeling rises. And that was the most eighth house thing that I've ever seen, these hidden feelings coming into light. But like you said, Elphaba is such a good person, even though she's marked as the wicked, that she's going to put her feelings aside because Glinda declared him her future husband. She kind of just has to deal. And that theme is so Pisces coded, because people who have a lot of Pisces placements have this tendency to see everyone as one. So I'm going to put my feelings aside, my needs aside, because theirs is the most important. And Pisces people will say things just to like have them exiled because they feel other people so strongly that, okay, let them get what they want and I'll be cast as the villain. So maybe that whole situation that you're described feels Venus and Pisces to me.
Ooh, okay, I love that you brought that up because it reminded me of when we talked about Cynthia's chart and how she has her Mars in Pisces at the 29th degree. And so it's just like, what a great energy for her to fully relate to. Like, that's how she moves through the world, is she's very like self-sacrificing, going with the flow. And even though she's very powerful, 29th degree in Pisces is a very powerful placement, but she really knows how to communicate that with her character Elphaba, of just going with the waves and, oh, like, I'm not going to rock the boat so much. I'm just going to go with the flow. And the flow is that Glinda, that's her husband. Like, that's the guy she's going to be with. And so I'm not that girl. But like you talked about with the eighth house in that song, I'm Not That Girl, she says, our hands touch, eyes meet, sudden silence, sudden heat. And like, so she feels like that eighth house vibe of like, ooh, this is intimate. Like, this is actually very intimate what we're experiencing here. And so, yeah, I love that you brought up Pisces too, because it really is like all those themes combined.
Yeah, and the eighth house makes a trine. And if you look at the natal chart and whole signs, like from ancient style, the eighth house makes a trine to the 12th house. So sometimes, in order to make these transformations, you have to dissolve your ego and become someone else, which is so 12th house theme. So if you have a planet in the 12th house and the eighth house, you're probably an expert at putting things of yourself aside for other people. And you probably also experience a lot of transformations where your entire ego dissolves and you have to be someone else, aka the person who's not in love with Figaro. Like, he's just a dude making fun of my green skin, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's such a great way to put it. And so let us know in the comments if you have these eighth house, 12th house kind of themes and how that's manifested in your life, because that's so interesting to see it play out in this story, but it plays out in real life too. And it's funny because, we're talking about the eighth house and the way that their relationship is. And I have a lot of eighth house placements in my chart. I have my sun and Venus in the eighth house. And I had a similar experience with my relationship with my husband, because when we first dated, we didn't even date, we were just friends. It was very like Fiyero and Elphaba coded, in that like he and I were almost like bantering and we're a little at odds with each other. But then, you'd have like a little touch, like a little eye glance, and there was like something under the surface there. And so, yeah, when you were describing that, I was just thinking about when were first friends, we weren't even dating. It was like, ooh, like something eighth house is happening here, little hidden romance under the surface.
That's so cute. Um, I feel like he's so Mars and Libra. Like,
Well, yeah, let's
it's like
talk
that.
about it.
I don't even know if I have thoughts on it. It's just like that awkward sense of flirting. It's like that whole passive aggressive, like, oh, hello. And then he like walks away.
It's kind of like he's keeping the peace a little bit. Like he's very cool and kind of airy and a little, I would even say like he's got some Aquarius influence there too, like that 11th house theme, because he's kind of detached and cool. But then when he connects with someone, like when he applies himself, it's very Mars and Libra because like he makes that other person feel like they're the only person in the room. Like when he has that older librarian woman that he like cozies up to in that scene, it's like he makes every single person feel like they could be his match, which is like very Mars and Libra. But then he's also like, oh, but I'm too cool. And like, I'm kind of like, I'm I'm gonna just do my own thing. Very, very like peaceful vibes, which is Mars and Libra a little bit.
Yeah. And you know who's giving Mars and Pisces? Bok, the Munchkin Bok, because he was so in love with Glinda, and it comes out in like the most weirdest and maybe even like awkward ways. And no, I'm not saying Mars in Pisces is awkward, but I am saying that Bok is awkward. So he was like, he'll just be like, oh, you're so beautiful. And then she's like, oh, but you're going to take Nessa to the dance. And he's like, okay. And he just gave away what he really wanted to make her happy by falling in love with someone else. And even when they were at the Astas ball, and she's like, I know why you took me, because Glinda wanted you to take me or whatever. Like she knew. But then Bach, with his Mars and Pisces, suddenly realized, oh, wait, she is beautiful. And I'm so happy to be here. And then he's like, no, this is for you. And it's Mars and Pisces coded to like have one intention that was self-sacrificial to suddenly see a completely different new perspective and become that perspective in your actions.
Ooh, that's a great way to put it. That Mars and Pisces energy. Yeah, I would say that a lot of people would probably think that Bach is like Pisces man coded.
Yeah.
Not all Pisces men, but sometimes they tend to be like almost like players in the sense of like they can make any dream a reality in that moment, and that but they can shift around because it's that mutable water energy. So it's giving like F boy a little bit, where it's like, oh, he's in it for this right now because the story seems really great, but then as soon as he realizes there's possibly something else he could have a fun story with, like he'll kind of like float on over to the next person, which in part 2 I think we might see that play out a little more for his character.
I can't wait. And his Mars and Pisces game was so strong that it spilled into his real life.
Yes, yes. And if you want to hear us touch on him and Ariana's relationship, listen to our Ariana Grande deep dive because we did chat about that a little bit. And you know what? Since we're talking about this, let's kind of close out our conversation and talk about the sign archetypes for each character, because we've kind of talked about that a little bit throughout the episode here. But I would love for us to kind of like really get a little deeper into like what those archetypes are of the signs for each character. And so when I was thinking about Fiyero, I was thinking he's very like Leo, Gemini, Sagittarius coded. And let me tell you why I think that. So, first of all, Fiyero, he's like sunshine, right? Like he comes in, he just lights up the room. He's an instant hit when he comes into the school. Everyone is like, "Oh, I know that guy." That's very like Leo royalty coded. He's from Winky Country, which is like the high class area where everybody is just, gorgeous and warm and sunny. And so he comes in with this like Leo vibe. He gets on the tables and starts dancing around, like dancing through life. Like that whole scene is like so Leo coded to me. And then I also feel like Gemini from him because of his wittiness. He's very like witty and has these like conversations when he talks to Elphaba, like where he makes like cute little comments. And he's also very like sociable as he's going through school, but he kind of keeps it short. Like Gemini rules like short, quippy kind of communication. Like they don't necessarily get too deep. So that was kind of the Gemini vibe I got from him. But then I also got a Sagittarius quality to him as well because he's kind of like worldly. He comes in and he's like, "Oh, I've been to all the schools." And he also is somebody who is not afraid of an adventure. Like he's like, "Oh, where are we going tonight? We're going to the Ozdust Ballroom." He's like, "Oh, you heard that's a bad spot to go?" Well, no, it's actually the best spot to go. And like that's very Sagittarius coded to me, like someone who's like the life of the party, and he takes everyone else on an adventure with him, which like I felt was very Sagittarius coded.
I agree. I would say Leo rising, maybe even like Venus in Leo in the first house, and then a Mars in Libra. So
Yes.
they have a little sextile going on with his Mars and Venus. He's a good, I guess, person to date in a one night stand kind of way. I'm trying to say, because we don't know his moon sign. What did you think his moon sign was? I don't think I
I
know
think
him well enough to know.
I think he's a Sagittarius moon.
Sagittarius
If
moon.
I had to
Okay.
guess, because your moon is your emotions, and he has like kind of a worldly quality to how he feels emotionally. And then I also feel like Sagittarius moons, they are like, because my husband's a Sagittarius moon, and they have a warmth to their emotions, but they're also kind of like a little scanning on the horizon, like what's out there. It's a little bit more like, oh, what's the next thing that's going to fuel me emotionally? It's not as grounded. It's more like Spitfire kind of vibe, and I feel like his character really gives kind of like emotionally we can't predict exactly what he's going to do next, which is I kind of feel like Sagittarius moon coded.
100%. And then if he's a Leo rising in whole sign, a Sagittarius moon would be, I think, in the fifth house. So that gives you like a sexual, I like to play, I could be, or even like an inner child kind of vibe. So yeah, I
Definitely.
see it.
Definitely, definitely. And something when I was watching the movie, like when I like was looking at Elphaba's character, we already talked about how she really is like the Scorpio archetype in a lot of ways, like transformation, the witch. But I also got a Sagittarius quality from her too, which is why I kind of thought Fiyero shared that Sagittarius energy. Maybe she has a Sagittarius placement somewhere in her chart because she also is like looking on the horizon, like traveling to the western sky. She wants to learn. Sagittarius rules higher learning, and I think she has that fiery quality too of Sagittarius. So not only do I think she's Scorpio coded, but I do think she could have a Sagittarius placement as well, and maybe that's like what her and Fiyero kind of like share in their vibe. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it makes sense because when they touched for the first time, they realized they had such a connection. And what kind of better connection would it be to have a matching moon with someone, especially in Sagittarius? Like, oh, we can get together and we could joke and we could fly and we could be independent and just like our own thing. And yeah, I totally think they both have it. So I would say, yeah, Sagittarius moon and maybe a Capricorn sun or a Taurus sun, maybe Capricorn, to show like she does have that mark on her because Capricorn is Saturn ruled and Saturn
Mm-hmm.
is like the mark for something big. And she has that mark for something big. She's composed. But what I like about Capricorns is they're ruled by the sea goat. So even though you see someone who does have all of this control and posture, there is the bottom half of them, which is going into water, the sea goat, the goat in the water. So there is emotions that flow from them. And with Elphaba, her emotions flow and it turns into the physical world. Like she can move a book with her mind. And at the beginning of the movie, she had no control over that. But as we're got to the end of the movie, and I can't wait for part two where we could see more of it, she's developed some kind of control over time, Saturn control over time. Well, work improvements over time. So yeah, I would say Elphaba has a Capricorn sun,
Mm-hmm.
Sagittarius moon, like you said, the over the horizon, and a Scorpio rising. But I also
Mm-hmm.
think there's a lot of sixth house placements with her because of her caringness and willing to advocate for the animals. It takes a very special, I mean, you can love animals with any house placements or signs, but to really go out of your way and advocate them, like the people on my Facebook friends list who will take dogs and drive them across the country and start these dog chains, and to like real strong activists have six house placements.
Yeah, I could totally see that for her. Definitely. And something else I was thinking about with Elphaba's character is like maybe she has like an Aquarius Venus or some sort of Aquarius in her because she's kind of alien like in a way. Like she is that sort of outcast vibe, but she really wants to be part of the community. And that's the Aquarius archetype is you feel like an alien in your own world, but you also want to belong to a community. And I just kind of feel like her telekinetic powers, like where she can move things with her mind, like that's very Aquarius coded. So, like, maybe she has an Aquarius Mars or something. I don't know. Just my 2 cents.
I agree. There is one line that she gave in the I think it was in the classroom when they like put an animal in a cage. She's like, "Are we just gonna let this happen?" And an Aquarius Mars will say that one thing that needs to be said at the right time. And she did it. So yeah, 100% agree.
Ooh, I'm glad you agree because I was like going out on a limb there. So I'm glad you feel that vibe too. And I want to talk about Bok again because we talked about his Pisces Mars vibe that he has, but also what I thought was interesting is that you were thinking kind of a Cancer vibe for him too. And like so explain like what you thought about Bok with his Cancer vibe.
Well, there was one part where he gave someone a handkerchief and she's like, I think it was
Yeah.
Glinda, and she's like, oh, and he goes, oh, I have a lot. I cry a lot. And love you, I love you, cancers, but you do cry a lot, and that's okay. We need people who feel the feels like that.
Yeah. And you know what?
Yeah.
He also like he is Munchkin Land, like that. He kind of represents Munchkin Land, and it's like Munchkin Land is very Cancer coded to me because it's like a home, it's like a cocoon container, and like they have their own like family vibe there. Like everyone looks the same, so it's just kind of like it kind of makes sense. And actually, that's so funny because when we talked about Ariana, she's a Capricorn rising, and we talked about her Cancer descendant and how when you have your descendant in Cancer, sometimes you attract people into your life to be your partner that are kind of like remind you of your family. And we were saying that Bach, aka Ethan Slater, he kind of looks like a member of Ariana's family, her brother, Frankie Grande. And so I feel like his character too is like very, not only him in Ariana's chart as a person, but his character is also very like Cancer coded in that vibe. Like he's very like one of the family.
You just, so this is vulnerable of me to say on camera, but I'm just going to say it. So my whole life, I've been made fun of for being short. I know you
Mm.
can't tell with my big presence on the camera, but I'm only 5 feet tall, and that's being generous. I might be like 4'11". Um, but growing up, a lot of people would make fun of me, and like when I would walk into like the classroom at school or come somewhere, people would sing the Munchkin Land song to me. And for me, like I didn't, yeah, like we welcome you to Munchkin Land, fa la la la, and they were just going off. And I would like cry about it because I didn't like being made fun of for being short. Like now, if someone called me that, I'd be like, thanks, you think I'm cute. But then it was not cute and it really, really bugged me. And my MC, which is the energetic point in your aura or in your chart, it shows how people remember you as a collective. And my MC is at 29 degrees Cancer, meaning I've experienced in my life one of the hardest lessons of Cancer, and to be always placed into Munchkin Land, this contained, teeny tiny little thing. It really hit home for me when you said that. And
Gosh,
yeah,
wow. That is I love you so much. That was so vulnerable of you to share that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe kids can be so mean. Like when they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened," but that really is a beautiful way you explained it, how like when you have something at 29 degrees in your chart, you often have to learn the biggest lesson around that placement. And so I would imagine that some of the characters in this movie like are similar to you. Like Elphaba in the beginning when they sang to her that the kids bullied her for being green and sang the little song to her. It's like you and her shared that experience a little bit. Like maybe Elphaba has something similar to that in her chart.
Yeah. Well, I'm the face of Pluto and I'm the face of Lilith. And
Yeah.
like, I know I have a heart of gold, just like Elphaba, but if you ask people from my past, they're probably going to say a lot of crazy things that I've done because I do carry that energy and it comes out whether I want it to or not. I mean, an Elphaba has it
Wow.
to an extreme condition with the greens, but yeah, I mean, there's been times where if I get like really, really emotional, my Wi Fi will go out. And I'm not saying like I'm a witch or I have powers, but I do have such strong emotions that they can impact the physical world. And that is Pluto coded, just like Elphaba, which is why I feel so natural in this costume. Like, can I wear it to my daughter's pickup? No, I'll scare her. Yeah, she already said she already told me she doesn't want to watch this episode because she doesn't want to see me dressed as a witch. But she said she'll listen to it. But then this morning when I was getting her dressed, she's like, Mommy, I know you're not really a witch, so I'll watch the episode. And I'm like,
Oh.
okay.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's like truly the story of Elphaba. Like so ingrained in your experience there. And oh, your sweetie daughter. I can't wait for her to see you as this powerful witch because you look incredible. So powerful. And
Talking
I
to a real life princess over here.
well, we are both planetary princesses. You've just got that Lilith, like powerful witch vibe on top of it, which is so powerful. And that's why I love working with you because I kind of feel like more related to Glinda in some ways. Like if we're going to talk about her sign archetype, like we talked about how she's got a lot of 11th house kind of themes, and I do relate to that. Like that really is something that I've had to work on. Something about me is that I moved around a lot as a kid. So I had to really like learn how to function in a lot of different social situations. And it was a situation where if I didn't kind of detach and just put myself out there and just be that social presence, like in a group, like I wasn't going to make any friends. Like I kind of had to learn to use that as like a power for me. And I feel like Glinda kind of similar, like she's so unique in her energy and she kind of knows it. Like she knows that she's like over the top, like different from everyone else, but she has to kind of put on this little show to toss her hair and kind of pretend like she's already a a sorceress even though she's not. That's I relate to that because I kind of had to pretend like I was more powerful than I was just to get through like life and social situations as a kid. So I kind of relate to that. And then I also when I was thinking about Glinda, I thought that she might have some Aries placements in her chart. I'm an Aries rising, and so I kind of thought that she might have some Aries in her chart cuz she's very like headstrong and she'll just do it. Like the way that she when she got to Shiz, she just went right up to Madame Morrible and was like, "Hi, I wrote you a letter to be in your class, and don't you remember what it was called?" And I kind of felt like that was very Aries rising coded, like something I would do, like just walking right up to the main professor and being like, "Hi, I wrote this letter to you to get in your class," kind of an energy, even though it might be kind of cringe. It's like I mean, sometimes Aries risings don't think before they do stuff. So they just kind of do it. And like, it might be cringe, but like, that's kind of it is what it is.
I don't think it's cringe. And also remember how she got her own dorm room. She requested her own private suite, which is definitely Aries coded. Like, no, I don't need a roommate. I'm going on this all by myself.
Totally. And then I think that it would make sense if she's an Aries rising because that would mean that Libra's on her descendant. And so that would mean that she's calling in like fated one on one partnerships that really make her evolve and grow. And that's the whole lesson of her relationship with Elphaba. Like she had to call in this partner that was more that she maybe didn't think was the same as her, but she ended up growing through that relationship and partnering up with that one person. And it's so opposite to what she does in life. Like if you're an Aries rising, you're kind of like, you're the solo, like you're not afraid to be on your own and just take charge and just take the leap, but you evolve through interacting with Libra people who are more like, hey, like let's balance the scales, like let's be more peaceful about this. Let's lean into the high expression of Venus, which is like loving in a more equal way, like wanting to balance the scales with love as opposed to like being very self-centered, which Glinda, obviously her character really shows that she needs to grow and not be as self-centered in the story.
Powerful stuff. And just like us, the Aries and the Libra matched together. And you even showed off your Aries qualities in this episode because, like, you literally planned this episode. Like, I just showed up with, like, I mean, I watched the movie last night and a little bit this morning just to get into the mood. But you led me. Like, if I was going too far in one tangent, you'd be like, okay, now let's talk about the shadows and transformation. And that's so Aries. And then I'm like, okay. And then I just go off of that and I bring my Libra side. Let's get those scales going.
Oh, well, that is why we are a perfect balance for each other because Aries rising, I need my beautiful planetary princess, Ashlee, Libra rising in my life to help me also learn how to talk more about the Venusian side of things and and just balance out that headstrong quality. So I love our dynamic together. And actually, I think that we have some things we want to tell our listeners about. So now that we kind of like wrapped up this episode, we are actually wrapping up our very first season of Planetary Princesses. So we have been so excited to be here, and we can't thank you enough for joining us on this journey from our deep dives into pop icons to our chats about the signs through the seasons. Your support really means the world and the stars to us.
I absolutely love it. It's been so much fun filming season one with you. I was way too shy to get in front of the camera for a long time, but you used your Sun and Venus charm, your Aries rising, to completely say like, everybody has to start somewhere. In every kind of podcast, like people will get behind the camera and it's kind of scary. Like even after we filmed the first episode, I had a few friends text me like, "Are you okay? Like, should I be listening to this yet or should I wait a few episodes?" And it wasn't like bad or anything like that. It was good, but it's just to show the vulnerability it takes. And when you have Pluto on your ascendant and Lilith on your ascendant, like Elphaba, Pluto is the planet where that hold secrets. Like, where do you hold the most secrets? So if you look in your chart, you look at your Pluto, you're probably kind of shy about these things. And with Pluto on my ascendant and on my moon, like my moon's there too, everything is secretive. And it's gotten me in trouble in life. I've had relationships end where it's like, Ashlee, why don't you just tell me what's going on? Like, I used to have lots of blogs that were known, and some people stopped following me because they're like, why aren't you just getting to the point of like what's going on deep down there? Are you being authentic? And yeah, I'm being authentic, but I'm letting things out really, really slowly. And when I meet people like you who are saying, you have a lot of good things to say, like, get in front of the camera with me, let's talk about this stuff, it makes me want to just let my guard down. And my nodes are completely squaring all my Pluto placements. So I have to kind of learn how to unravel myself and be more open and vulnerable, especially in front of the camera, to get where my own energy is looking to get through in this lifetime. So I thank you, Kate, for encouraging me to do this. I thank everyone who's listened to this episode. Like, we've had some episodes where like over 1,000 people have listened, and that's huge. And I'm like so thankful for all of you. And we have such big plans for season two, more sparkles because we're getting more confident. We broke the ice and now we are ready to build something big.
Oh, Ashlee, I love you so much. And I love doing this with you. You are so smart, so knowledgeable, so beautiful in exterior beauty and in spirit. And and I think it'll be so much fun to do this again, season 2 in 2026. We are going to bring even more magic and astrology. And we would really love your help shaping what's next. If you're listening to this, we put together a quick listener survey to hear your thoughts, your dreams, your feedback about the show. The link is going to be in our show notes and our bio. It'll only take a few minutes and it'll really help us create season 2 with even more sparkle. So, like, if you want to hear something from us, specifically a topic you're interested in, Ashlee and I also talked about doing possibly some episodes where we have you send us your charts and we can answer questions about your charts. So, if that's something that interests you, we'd love if you would put that in the survey. Just take a few minutes to do that for us. We'd really, really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And we love you. And we can't wait to see you in season 2, early 2026.
Yes, and of course, if you're enjoying the podcast now, we always appreciate you rating, reviewing, subscribing, sharing the episode with your besties in your Astro Curious group chat. As always, thank you for listening to Planetary Princesses. Keep shining like the star you are, and we'll see you next season, Cosmic Royal family.